Good morning, everyone. Find you all well. Take a seat, take a coffee, and we will start in a minute or two as we see people are arriving. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We are almost about to start, so please hope you are seated well and have a coffee. And we look forward to start this webinar with you. One more minute. Thank you. So, good morning, everyone. Let us see if we can get started here. This webinar today. So, hi everyone. Välkomna allesammans. Bem-vindos a todos. Welcome everyone to our Moving to Portugal webinar of 2022. Being Swedes, you probably know that this is almost the day before we call in Sweden Valborg or Valpurgis Night, which is something we celebrate on April 30th with fires to greet the spring and the light. Though, for myself, being a Swede in Portugal, I can gladly share that the Portuguese spring started quite some time ago, and what we in Sweden call spring is most likely a good winter day in Portugal. I am, for you who not know me, Jennifer Ekström, chairwoman of the Swedish Portuguese Chamber of Commerce, and I'm very happy to be here today to open this session. And this is our 2022 edition of our popular webinar series, Moving to Portugal, where we discuss various aspects of relocating to this amazing country. Most of you might be aware, though, who we are from the Chamber, but let me just mention as a starter that the Chamber is on one hand a gateway to business and trade between Sweden and Portugal, and on the other hand, a networking hub for Swedish and Portuguese professionals, meaning all of you in here today. Today's talk is a collaboration between the Chamber and our partners from SEB, SÉRVULO, and Ombria. And in dialogue with all our lovely speakers, we will share insights on finance, legal, and lifestyle-related aspects of moving here to Portugal. And you know what? Portugal is actually one of my favorite places to be and to live. Maybe you have understood that. And for me, Portugal is so much more than just the good weather and all the 300 days or more of sun that we have. There is quite a well-built up infrastructure here. There's a lot of competence in the market for doing different jobs. In the end, I would say it's all about the people, curiosity, and the environment that spurs creativity here in the south. And I would probably not forget to mention the gastronomy, which is delicious. If you like both fruits, seafoods, fish. And Portugal as a destination then. It was becoming very popular pre-pandemic that hit. And it has been highly ranked as a top location both for tourism, but also for foreign citizens to relocate and to live. This much has to do with the quality of life here and also the security that we face in this country. It's a secure country to live in. And for Swedes then, it has also risen throughout the years, and main popular destinations to live for Swedes continue to be both the Algarve region, but also the bigger region of Lisbon. And there are around 5,000 Swedes living in Portugal today, or at least the ones who are registered, because not everyone registers. But maybe some of you who are in here today will also become new Swedes in Portugal. We hope so. I'm not here to take up your time today with my words. And as invited guests and speakers, we are very glad to have with us Daniel Wikehult from the banking sector and SEB. We have João Richard Costa, experienced in real estate from Ombria Resort. And last but not least, we will also meet Teresa Pala Schwalbach from legal firm SÉRVULO, and she's also member of the CLS board. So, a warm welcome to all our speakers and a very warm welcome to all of you watching. Before we start, just a few guidelines to make the most of this hour. If you have questions, please put any question you might have in the Q&A function. We will try to respond or during the webinar or bring up the questions in the end of the Q&A. And this session is also being recorded and will be available afterwards. So we will send the link in a thank you email to all of you, and we'll also put it up on our website if you want to go back to a part or if you want to share it with a colleague or a friend. So let us start this session. And to do so, I would like to start by giving the word to our first guest, Daniel from SEB. So Daniel, please, can you tell us about what SEB is seeing in terms of people moving from Sweden and who you help?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer, and hello, everyone. So my name is Daniel Wikehult. I represent SEB internationally. So we focus on, I would say, the European countries. Plus, we also have a hub in Singapore for the Asian markets. But let's focus on Europe here, and of course Portugal in particular. So what we've seen, I think we've always seen a very steady flow of Swedes. Maybe mainly seeking the sun, or moving to say I'm based in London myself, so a lot of professionals moving here. I think it's a bit, the country seems to differ a little bit from time to time where people move. I mean, Portugal, of course, when the NHR regime came, then Portugal became a lot more popular than before. We see similar things in Italy, for example. I think Switzerland has always been quite popular. We see Spain, of course, have come up as a destination to move to. So I think we always seen a steady move. And then I think there has been a slight change since the pandemic, that it seems like more Swedes are experiencing the hybrid working model, looking maybe for a second home in one of the southern European countries. And that's what we have seen, I think, lately, where it's really taken off the last couple of years with on second homes, and even people want to move permanently. So I think I think that's what we see, and what we do within SEB for what we can help with for people moving to Portugal. As an example, we focus on the Nordic individuals, and of course this is the Swedish chamber. So Swedes are the biggest group within our sort of scope. In Portugal, we are mainly present around the Lisbon area and down at the Algarve, for logical reasons. And we, from SEB's side, we can offer a one-stop shop for banking when you are moving, either from Sweden or for the little bit more complex customers from our hub in Luxembourg. So we offer everything from the everyday banking with multi-currency accounts, wealth planning. I have my colleague Olaf sitting there with Teresa. We offer, let's say, a wealth portfolio, which we call it, what for Swedes are known as a kapitalförsäkring, which is a very useful tool while you are in Portugal for deferring your capital gains taxation. We are down networking and doing events. We can also do mortgages in Portugal, then mainly in these two regions that I mentioned. And of course, the basis for our sort of private wealth services are investments and the broad spectrum there. Everything from take care of it yourself to let us take care of the investments for you. And everything is done in a way that plays with Portuguese rules and also say tax efficiency. So I think that's in a short overview of what we are doing. We have a team, even if from Luxembourg there are mainly Swedes, only Nordic people working in the front. So becoming a customer will be very similar to having a Swedish bank in Sweden, just that it's a bit more international. So I think that's what I wanted to say. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Daniel, and glad to hear the big interest, not only from the Swedes, but from the Nordic in Portugal and all the services you can help with when relocating to this amazing country. So let us also go further and speak a bit to Teresa and to Olaf, who are with us today. I wonder what profile of individuals, when we're talking about so many people still moving here, what are the main profile that you see moving in the recent times?
So thank you, Jennifer. I have the opportunity today to actually be in Lisbon, so I can and having been here for a few days now, I can perfectly understand why people would want to move to Portugal. It's a nice country. I think in terms of people moving to Portugal, there are always, of course, still, as Daniel mentioned, the people maybe looking for sun and relaxation when they are retiring. I think what we've seen the past few years, though, particularly during COVID, is also entrepreneurs moving down to increasingly to Portugal. And I think a lot of people during the past 2 years have realized that they can perform their work or do consultancy services or work with IT, for example, basically everywhere they want to. So it's more a matter of finding a place where you would like to live. Then they can do the work from there rather than having to sit in the same place all the time.
Yes, and I would complement Jennifer, that our experience from the Portuguese perspective is completely aligned with Olaf's view. We still have all those Scandinavians and other nationalities who want to come because they're retired, they're looking for a different type of life and lifestyle. But in the past few years, and especially also during COVID, and COVID was the reason, and we can take that a bit further, we see a lot of entrepreneurs, young families, and as Olaf was mentioning, quite a lot of digital nomads who realize they can be anywhere in the world to perform their work.
That's really interesting. So the reasons, you talk a lot about the sun, but would that be the main reason to move to Portugal, or what you actually see? Why is someone actually being here? For myself, I can say I didn't move here because of the sun, obviously, but the sun is obviously a good benefit being here.
Well, Jennifer, I would say the sun is one of them, but we have so many reasons that we could be here the rest of the day discussing why people would like to come to Portugal. You could speak of the sun, the food, the wine, definitely the good weather. We also noticed that during COVID, a lot of people chose Portugal because of the way in which we created a very safe environment for people to feel that it was okay to be in Portugal because we didn't have a big number of cases. And of course, with the new profile of people we're seeing coming to Portugal, there are other more practical reasons. Young families come to Portugal because perhaps the lifestyle is a bit slower than Scandinavian. They have the same quality of life. They have international schools. You have a high expertise here in the Portuguese market, so you can, as a professional, you know that your expertise will be required, and you also know that that expertise reflects on your children if you take them to school here in Portugal. But there are many other reasons as well, which I'm quite sure Olaf can also outline.
No, but I agree with all of those, and particularly if you move here as a family, then of course international schools are important. Crime rate is important, and I believe Portugal is quite a low crime rate as well. They feel safe here, and also particularly when it comes to tech, what I'm hearing at least is that entrepreneurs are able to find qualified personnel here in Lisbon.
Which is also very important for someone who's moving or relocating business here, definitely. So when you take the move and you go a bit further and you actually want to take that step, coming here, obviously there's always some maybe bureaucratic barriers, but what are the legal and tax main issues that you see that individuals need to think about when moving here?
Well, if I start, I mean, I think I see obviously the non-habitual residency regime that Portugal created in 2009 has been a draw, and is also good for highly qualified personnel moving here. So that's obviously important, having the right business environment to be able to set up your business in an efficient way. Then in terms of Sweden, I think we obviously what I think everyone knows by now what happened from January this year is there is no tax treaty between Portugal and Sweden at the moment, and that of course creates a little bit of an unpredictable environment when it comes to double taxation. So I would say that my main message is probably to plan ahead. There may be small changes that you can make in order to make life easier. For example, there might be just small changes that you need to make to become non-resident in Sweden, because dual residence is of course extra difficult when there's not a tax treaty in place. Then there are solutions. There are always solutions in internal law in Portugal, for example, to claim credit if you have a double taxation situation. But again, I think important to plan ahead, or what do you say?
I'm
Teresa?
completely aligned, and I think it's interesting that Olof and I, for all of those watching, we're actually sitting in the same room. So Sweden and Portugal are completely aligned, even from a physical perspective. And Olof here represents the part of moving out from Sweden or wherever our attendees are watching, and then you have the part of setting up in Portugal. And it's always good to plan ahead to make things correct from the start, because every situation is different. Of course, someone relocating alone will have perhaps an easier setup or not. A family has other types of concerns. An entrepreneur would want to know, as Olof was mentioning, how to set up the business, whether to create a company in Portugal, what happens to the businesses that the person had in Sweden. And then, of course, as you yourself can probably experience, Jennifer, there are a lot of practical aspects in Portugal which are very different from Sweden, from buying a property to the number of registrations that one single person has to do before the public entities in Portugal to have its situation completely by the book. It's not just performing one registration like in Sweden. Here you have to do many different ones, from tax registrations to the driving license to the social security. So there are a lot of things that need to be considered. And of course, if someone comes to develop a business, and as we mentioned, the tech hub is very strong in Portugal, so it's definitely very interesting for our digital nomads and anyone in the business to come and work in Portugal. There's a whole setup to think about if you want to hire people in Portugal, in Sweden, or in any other country, because there you go, people can work from wherever they want. What are the implications not only for the persons themselves, but also for the companies that they have? So I think our main message is plan ahead to make sure that everything runs smoothly when you finally take the big decision to move.
And I think another thing that particularly maybe younger families who are moving tend to forget sometimes is social security coverage as well. It's a big area, so I don't think we have time to go into detail or cover it today. But it's something that you should definitely consider when moving. What social security system will I belong to going forward? There are certain opportunities, of course, if you are employed in Sweden and sent to Portugal, that you can maybe remain in the Swedish social security system. But otherwise, you need to, again, plan ahead and make sure that you know that you get into the Portuguese social security system, that your family members also get in to the social security system here and have access to health, hospitals, things like that.
I would say, just on a final note from my side, that it's also important to bear in mind that if we look at a relocation from Sweden to Portugal or vice versa, it's true we're talking about two countries within the European Union. And so we have the idea that the rules are very much harmonized, everything is going to be smooth. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. There's a bit of bureaucracy in both cases. We would think that the rules would be clear on how to move out from one country and move into the other. But for instance, Olof and I have been working together for over 10 years, moving people from Portugal to Sweden and vice versa. And we know that the rules are not always clear. So I would say that if, apart from planning ahead, anyone thinking about taking this step should be ready to have a bit of patience, because in the first year, they can expect a bit of paperwork, documentation, and perhaps sometimes a bit of frustration until we can get everything right.
I think you nailed the word there, Teresa. I was thinking myself, patience. And I think that's a good thing. Slow down, probably a good advice. When you come here, it's not to be in a hurry. Everything will solve out fine, but yep. It might take longer than in Sweden, and also going to different institutions in Sweden with the personal number we have is interconnected everywhere, and you just need one change. But here you actually have to make the change at each place we go to. So definitely also very aligned with what you're saying. Maybe we should go further and also let João into the discussion. I think he's waiting patiently here also. And João is from Ombria Resort. And speaking to you, João, have you seen, you work a lot in the Algarve region, and we can even see here in your beautiful picture, background picture, how it looks. But have you seen a change in the number of clients looking to move to Algarve or buy property in Algarve the recent years, comparing to before?
Hi, Jennifer. Yes, I have. Actually, in the last 2 years, namely since the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen an increased number of people looking to move to Portugal. And I mean, I work for Ombria Resort, which is a development located in Algarve, in the south of Portugal. And what I see is that more and more people are looking for a place where they can move to and access what we call the slow living. So I'm taking a little bit from what you said earlier, that people, when they move to Portugal, you know, they should expect to live a slower life. Slow living is all about that in a way, and Portugal and the Algarve is probably one of the ideal places to do that. What people have realized, I think, since the beginning of the pandemic, is that they want to live a healthier lifestyle in general, right? So they want to, and I'm coming back to things that have already been said here. You know, they want to eat better food. You know, the farm to table movement we've seen here, namely in the Algarve, has increased immensely. You know, restaurants offering local foods rather than foods that are imported from long distances. People want to have more contact with nature, for example. They want to live in low density areas. They don't want, you know, of course there are still people wanting to live in big cities, but what I see here, the trend is that more and more people want to live in the outskirts of big cities, so not far from big cities, but they want to have more contact with nature, with, you know, they want to be more in a place where they have green spaces around them, and in general, you know, be more active and so on. So another thing is that they want to improve their work family balance, let's say. So a lot of them, as already been said here, are working from home more than they used to before the pandemic. And so that is important to them, that, you know, not only the home offers this, you know, these practical aspects of having fast internet, having a place where they can work, you know, a kind of an office within the home and so on. But they want to be able to quickly, you know, leave work and, you know, be with their families in nature and so on and so forth. And this is the trend that I see nowadays. So more and more clients looking for, you know, to buy a property in Portugal with these kind of characteristics and so on. Then Ombria, in a way, the reason why I've seen this is that because Ombria is in a way, you know, a little bit gathers all these characteristics. You know, Ombria is located in Algarve, not far from Faro Airport, about 20 kilometers inland, north of Faro Airport, and from a lot of Algarvian beaches. Our main mission is sustainability and creating a new community that's well integrated into the local landscape. Here in the image that we have now, you can see that what we are still building it, so it will only open next year. But what you see here is the Viceroy Hotel and the residences, so apartments that are part of the hotel. Oriole Village, which are homes, 2, 3, 4 bedroom homes that people can live in, with a beautiful landscape around it and an 18-hole golf course. We are owned by Pontos Group, a Finnish investment company. One of our main partners is Viceroy Hotels and Resorts, who is going to be doing the management of the 5-star hotel that will open next year. And Ombria in general is 150 hectares of land with several facilities, such as hiking trails, and the hotel, the golf course, several homes, a gym, sports center, etc. So a lot of people that are coming to see us are people who have, you know, this objective of moving into a low density area, experience less stress, you know, working from home and so on. So this is what I'm seeing as a trend.
Very nice to hear. And when you speak about the trend, would that also connect to the reasons to buy and the types of home people are looking for? Because it's connected to nature. So, but you're also seeing there's a more increase for larger home, for smaller home, or is it more in general? It's just to be in the nature, or are there other reasons to buy?
Yes, there are the reasons. I mean, people in general are looking for bigger and better homes. So quality for them, and especially for the Nordics, for the Nordic country, for the Nordic clients, is very important. So, and you know, some homes in Portugal that have been built many years ago are not the types of homes that the Nordic clients are looking for. So a lot of these Nordic clients are looking for, and when I say Nordics, it's not just Nordics, it's also, you know, other European clients, are looking for modern homes with good, you know, with good construction materials and so on. They are more looking for a second home than a holiday home. The difference is that second home is a home that they can stay for long periods, say 6 to 9 months of the year. A holiday home would be a home that people, you know, would spend maybe 2-3 weeks in the summer, 2-3 weeks in the winter, and that's it. So that's not what I see in terms of trend, is that people are looking for, you know, better homes, better quality homes where they can spend more time than previously. Then it's also been mentioned by Teresa and others here today, you know, people are moving to Portugal and the Algarve more with their families. So they're looking for places where they can put their children in local schools. And for example, in the Algarve, there's been an increase of the number of good international schools that offer, you know, international curriculum to their students. And these schools the existing schools have been improving their facilities, and new schools have opened in recent times. This has also happened in and around Lisbon. And then the last and not least reason for people to buy and to move to Portugal is personal security. You know, it's also been mentioned before, but people, you know, Portugal and the Algarve is seen and is one of the safest places in the world to live in, and people really value that. And in terms of the real estate market in general, what the clients see is that Portugal and the Algarve is a well-organized real estate market with a lot of real estate agencies, a lot of developers offering good quality homes, and that's why people are coming. Basically, those are the main reasons.
Really interesting. So we see the security, personal security. We see the family reasons, and why to get away a bit from big city life and going into the nature. Super interesting, João. And when you look to the future, we know that we haven't Ombria is yet not open, but we'll open next year. I even saw a question here now in the Q&A, someone asking if it's possible to visit Ombria pre-opening. But maybe you can respond to that, and also respond to what are the main future prospects for the Algarve property market from your point of view.
Sure. Yes, so Ombria is under construction since about well, a couple of years now, and yes, it's possible to visit it. We are selling some of the homes that we are building there. We're selling them off plan. They will be ready. Some of them will be ready next year. Some of them will be ready a bit later than that. But yes, it's possible to visit, of course. We have had many clients visiting over the past few years, and we have sold already many of the homes that are being built. On the first phase, we have about 65 apartments that are integrated into the Viceroy Hotel, what we call the Viceroy residences. And of those 65, we have sold about 70% of them already. So in terms of sales, we have been lucky to welcome a lot of clients here visiting already, and some of them have made the decision to buy here. In terms of future trends, I can mainly speak about the Algarve market, of course. What I see here in the Algarve is a continued lack of supply of good quality homes compared to the demand that is continuing to increase. So next year, some local planning laws will be confirmed, what we call the PDM, and we believe that these new laws, planning laws, will make it even harder to build new properties and to refurbish old properties. So that means that it will be even more difficult for developers like Ombria to launch new products, new homes. So this means that there will be a continued lack of supply, again in comparison to the demand that continues to increase. So I believe that prices will continue to increase in the Algarve and in the whole of Portugal. Not only because of this reason, but also because of the fact that as we all know, there is general inflation nowadays. Construction costs are going up, and it's getting more and more difficult to build good quality homes at the same price as there used to be in the past years, basically. So the main message is, buy as soon as possible. Don't wait up, and for us developers, we need to offer as soon as possible more homes so that we can offer these homes to the people that are looking for them.
Thank you, João. Super interesting to hear, and also your points about the future prospects for the Algarve property market. I don't know if even if Olaf and Teresa or Daniel would like to add something there, or if you also have any opinion on the future trends, not only for Algarve, but seeing what you see and hear. What are the future trends that you believe will come now in a post-pandemic time? You want to start, Daniel?
No, I haven't seen any sort of special trends on Portugal, but I think in general we've seen a rise in property prices all the way since the financial crisis. Now, of course, we will leave it to see what happens with the interest rates going up, but also it should be a good inflation hedge to own assets. So, and I think what João sort of pointed out, that good quality homes, I think is what people are looking for, and they usually always are attractive.
That's good. Teresa and Olaf, you want to comment as well?
No, I don't think I have anything in addition to what Daniel said. We've the interest in second home is I think the one thing we have noticed the past 2 years. Buying second homes in Portugal, for example, but it could also be Spain or France. I think people want that who can afford it, of course, would want that second place to get a change of scenery, I suppose.
Yes, and I would add that The trends we've seen post-pandemic are those we already mentioned, which is the shift in the profile of the people moving, where we still see retirees, but who were the strong first wave coming in, now to entrepreneurs, young families, and digital nomads.
Yeah, which is quite a big shift also, if you look at what they will need and what they are looking for in a country maybe. I've seen you already responded to a few of the questions in the Q&A, but maybe it would be interesting also to comment as we are here, Teresa. Maybe we can start with you. There was a question about moving to rural areas. You mentioned there are some tax incentives, but would you like to just give a bit of a more of a framing of the question? What should people think about if you want to move to a rural area or in the center of Portugal or somewhere less dense, so to say?
Well, I would say that the first incentive is that probably the cost of living is definitely much lower than the cost of living in Lisbon or Porto at least, and that's not a tax incentive, that's just the market working. But tax-wise, our government has created a number of benefits. So if you're an individual, you can have a reduction on the personal income tax, or you can have an exemption on the property tax. So if you decide to buy a property, apart from the taxes you have to pay when you buy, you also have to pay a yearly tax. And in some cases, you can also have an exemption from that yearly tax if you buy somewhere in the countryside. And for companies as well, as you can imagine, of course, the thriving businesses in Portugal are more focused on the coastal side, Lisbon, Porto, the Algarve. So even if someone doesn't move to the countryside, if they set up a business inside Portugal, they can also have some tax benefits for the companies that they incorporate there in terms of corporate tax and also property taxes.
Interesting. So a lot of benefits actually, for personal and if you're having a small business. We did respond already, I think, to the Ombria question a bit, how it is already open, as you heard. So reach out to João. I think also João's colleague Sabrina has put in here the contact for anyone who's interested to calling them directly or go for a visit. This lovely resort. Then we also have one question about the difference it makes today when you live here in Portugal for we all know that the tax treaty was terminated in January, but what does that actually mean from maybe this is something that the person wants to ask here. What does it mean not to have a double tax treaty between the countries? What are the risks, maybe?
I think it's hard to give a straightforward answer because it will always depend on the individual situation. So whether you are tax resident in Sweden still, or whether you are non-resident, and also what type of income you are receiving. But I mean, on a general level, if someone is tax resident in both Sweden and Portugal before when we had the tax treaty, the tax treaty would usually give preference to Portugal to tax any non-Swedish source income. So if you had, for example, income from, I don't know, US sources or Germany or Spain or something like that, and you were regarded as being treaty resident here in Portugal, those income like that would be exempted from Swedish taxation and taxed in Portugal, whereas now with no tax treaty, you would actually have to declare that type of income in both countries. I mean, that's one example. If you are non-resident in Sweden, then the obvious one, of course, anyone who's retired in Portugal is nowadays aware that they will pay 25% what's called sink taxation in Sweden on their pension income, of course. And there's also what's called a 10-year.
Because the pension comes from Sweden, then, so that's why they have it.
When it comes from Sweden, yes, yeah. That's right. And there's also a 10-year rule concerning capital gains that was where Sweden has the right to tax capital gains 10 years after moving from Sweden under certain circumstances. That was reduced by the tax treaty to to 5 years, but now it's the full sort of tax 10 years again. So those are just a few examples. I don't know if you want to add anything, Teresa.
I would say that the analysis would always have to start from Olo's perspective of what happens in Sweden and what's an individual's tax situation in Sweden. But as Olof was saying, one of the main differences is the fact that now someone who is a non-resident in Sweden and a tax resident in Portugal will pay SENK on their pensions. They may have withholding tax on other income sources. But naturally, as we were mentioning earlier as well, because they're tax residents in Portugal, they may use a double taxation credit. So in their tax returns in Portugal, they can include any tax paid in Sweden and offset it in Portugal according to Portuguese internal rules. But of course, that's a situation we have to see on a case-by-case basis. And of course, again, the importance of planning ahead to try to understand exactly what the absence of a tax treaty means for someone who wants to move to Portugal.
Okay. And then looking, for example, at the digital nomads or even someone who is actually in the Portuguese, just living here, no residence in Sweden anymore, then you would be just applying to Portugal, right? You wouldn't be part of this.
And when we speak of digital nomads, apart from, it's important to bear in mind that the absence of a tax treaty is not just relevant for individuals, but also for businesses, as the Chamber has been alerting over the past months. So even digital nomads who live in Portugal have to consider the consequences for the companies that they work for, even if the company is in Sweden, or if it's not in Sweden, in another country which Portugal may or not have a tax treaty. What does it mean for the company that they are working in Portugal, and what impact that may have from a tax perspective?
Very interesting. I see we got a new question also in here. Well, it's high and low here, but does Portuguese speak good English? Because as a Swede here, my Portuguese is very limited at the moment, says our audience. Obviously, I would probably say it's relative. Teresa here is Portuguese, and she speaks excellent English. And I don't know if you want to discuss on this, but it probably depending on a bit where in Portugal you are, I would say. Algarve, Lisbon, Porto.
I don't know if you agree with me, but I would say that, first of all, Portuguese tend to be very friendly. So even if they don't speak good English, they will still try to help someone who needs help somehow, even if in Portuguese. But I would say that the Portuguese more, I agree with you, of course, if we are speaking of Lisbon, Porto, or the Algarve, the level of English should be relatively good. But the Portuguese tend to be quite open to speaking foreign languages. So I would say that communication, from my experience also of many years of working with Swedes moving to Portugal, is that they all tend to find a good way to communicate.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. And I think comparing maybe to the other Southern European countries, Portugal is definitely normally seen as a good English-speaking country, or have a good English-speaking population. And even in the if you look at the EF English index, you can see that Portugal is quite high actually on the index, quite close to Sweden even. So if you look at overall population, there is a very high proficiency of English. I think we have gone through most of the questions. There might be some other interest from all of you watching. We will, in one hand, we will go through this webinar again. We will send it out, and you will also be able to have the contacts not only on this webinar, but we will send it afterwards also, so you can directly contact to our speakers. Maybe as before we leave here also, and also as a final question to everyone. So I would ask both maybe Daniel first, and then João, and in the end Olof and Teresa. But why Portugal, so to say? Why would you prefer to move to Portugal, in your own personal opinion?
Shall I start?
Yes, feel free to start, Daniel.
No, but I think if you of course, you have the weather. I should say I have a house in Spain, so I'm not I'm on the other side of the border. But of course you have you get the sun, but also of course around Lisbon you get a proper big city, which you lack in many of the sun places otherwise. And of course, as you mentioned, the food. I have on my list now. There's opened a new Portuguese restaurant here in London that I need to try from one of the famous chefs. So I think those 2 points, and also the NHR status makes it quite simple and a very efficient place to live if you manage your money, compared to, for example, I mean, England have a good system, but it's a lot more complicated. So I think that speaks for Portugal.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
And João, well, as a Portuguese, why should anyone come here and live in Portugal?
Well, I can speak as someone who lived outside Portugal for over 20 years, and that came back to Portugal about 5-6 years ago. So when I was living abroad, I used to come to Portugal from time to time. I was living in Northern Europe, and I used to come to Portugal from time to time for holidays or for work. And every time I used to come, it made me understand the reason why so many people come to Southern Europe in general, and namely to Portugal, to spend their holidays and to spend their time here, basically. And one of the main reasons I identified was the weather. But when I say the weather, I don't mean just the weather in general. I mean the light, the smells that you get when you arrive in Lisbon or to Faro Airport as you come out of the plane. When those kind of odors and smells hit you on, when you come out of the plane is something magical and difficult to explain to someone who has never come here, obviously. So you have to try it to experience it yourself, to understand. And last but not least is what has been mentioned already, is the openness of the Portuguese people. The first contact with people that you have, at the airport, driving a taxi, when you go to a local restaurant or to a local shop, the contacts that you have with Portuguese people in general seem so genuine, so authentic, and that's the best way that I can describe it. So that's why what I would say people should move to Portugal is when they are looking for this kind of authenticity, genuinity, weather, etc.
Thank you, João. And the light, the light is absolutely amazing here. It's something that you kind of understand when you always close to the ocean or to the river. There is a special light. So Olaf and Teresa. Well, one Sweden, one Portuguese view. More.
I've come here quite regular since 2010, and the people, the Portuguese are open and they are friendly, and then of course the beautiful scenery that you can find here, and then I agree with all the other points. And I would say, to answer the question about English, my experience is that the Portuguese are quite good in English as well, which of course makes it easier coming from as a Swede, for example, coming to live in Portugal.
And I would say, Jennifer, and I don't know if you or João agree with me, but it's also about the surprise that Portugal has to offer. Someone can go to Lisbon, They love Lisbon, and then they come to live, and after 6 months they go to the Algarve, they see Ombria and they fall in love. They go to our islands, Madeira or Azores, and you find something that is completely unexplored. And I agree with what's being said here, that Lisbon is a European city. It's no different from Stockholm, London, or Paris in that sense. And then all of a sudden you go into the countryside of Portugal, you go to our islands, and you find nature in its raw states, unexplored, and you find out that every time you travel, and over the past years with all the people I've helped move to Portugal, we get a lot this sense that they keep getting surprised at a lot of things that they either see or visit in Portugal or at the Portuguese themselves, because as we mentioned here over our conversation, we have a big tech hub, but what a lot of people sometimes don't know is that quite a lot of the technology we use around the world is Portuguese. The brands don't have a Portuguese name, but they're actually Portuguese. So people get the surprises not just from what they see, but sometimes from what they start learning about Portugal, the small company somewhere lost in the middle of the countryside that you find out has created something completely innovative, which I'm gonna dare say may change the world.
Yeah. And I think you're quite spot on, Teresa. I can only agree, because Portugal shows you can live here for many years, but there's always something new to see, and there's always another dish to try, and you get surprised because every place has its own kind of difference or spark. So the nature is obviously a very good one. The people also, and the food. But I fully agree. There is so much innovation here, and there's so much creativity, and it's hard to not fall in love with Portugal in that sense. And there's much to discover. It's a small country. From Lisbon, you go maybe 5 hours north, and you're in Spain. You go 2 hours south, and you're in sea again, and 2 hours to the west, and you're in Spain. So with that little space, you actually have an immense offer for any kind of people or any kind of need you might have. Having this said, I would like to give a big thank you to all our speakers. If there was some question now not answered, we will connect with you, and we'll ask you to connect with us afterwards, so we can respond to any pending questions that we have. But I hope everyone watching today have been enjoying this hour and got some more food for thoughts, so to say, Portuguese food for thoughts, and also that you can connect with us to get more into Portugal, whatever question you might have about the language, about the legal situation, about your finances, and how you can accommodate better in this lovely country. And I think as an ending word, I think we can say, so yes, there is the light. You see it here also in the screen, but the light, the openness, it's the people. It's much about the people, but they also get very good food. We need to eat also to feel good. And it's a lot of value and quality of life here, both in the nature, but also at most places that you encounter in Portugal. So thank you very much. Obrigada a todos. And tack allihopa. We hope to see you soon again. And thank you to the panel, Teresa, Olof, Daniel, João. We speak soon again. Have a lovely day, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.